Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
It's 8:07. It's O'Connor and Company live from Washington, D.C., your nation's capital. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to further analyze the results of yesterday's New York City primary and sort of introduce you even more so to Zohran Mamdani. We gave you a preview of this yesterday. Earlier in the program, we spoke with Curtis Sliwa. We'll tell you where things stand, who this man is, and what it means to America's largest city coming up in a bit. It's Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
Joining us right now, always a great conversation with retired four-star General Jack Keane. He is the chairman of the Institute for the Study of War and Fox News senior strategic analyst. Okay, much to get into here, General. Thanks for joining us. Good morning.
Yeah, Larry, great to be here with you and Julie.
First, the media is all ablaze over this leaked anonymous intelligence assessment that is unverified and uncorroborated. By the way, it's being reported by the same woman who had the Steele dossier Russian collusion anonymous leaks and also the Hunter Biden laptop is Russian disinformation anonymous leaks. That said, you're used to seeing an analysis like that and assessments like this. What do you make of what we're learning right here, and is it enough to make a judgment on the military strike in Iran?
Well, no, it's not. I mean, there's a process that the intelligence community goes through, and we have multiple sources to assess what has taken place there. And just running down those very quickly, their satellite images, the Israelis are running air reconnaissance over the area. Signals intelligence is well known. We eavesdrop on our adversaries in terms of their communications, and they're doing their own assessment. And believe me, we would probably value their assessment of what has taken place, and that's being gathered. Mm-hmm. And then the last is human intelligence. The Israelis have people on the ground. Mossad has been to the sites multiple times. I've gone to my Israeli friends, excuse me, and I've asked them, where are you on this? And they discount the publication that we've all been reading that took place in CNN and New York Times as being quite premature and not in line with their preliminary assessment, and I emphasize preliminary. Yeah. But they believe, based on the assessment that they've made, primarily relying on human intelligence, that is people on the ground or people who work at the facility, they have penetrated Iran's capabilities quite significantly. Their own people on the ground or people that work at the facility. And they believe it's not a few months, but a couple of years have been delayed, and there's been severe damage at the site in question. They emphasize also that their assessment is not complete, but at a minimum, that's where they are right now.
So a quick follow-up then, given that, and I appreciate that sort of sober and circumspect analysis of where things actually stand, what could you suspect might be the motivation of the one anonymous source who illegally leaked this top secret information that is completely partial, unverified, and misleading? Why do you think they would leak this? And is it responsible for news outlets to run with this story, given all of that you just told us?
Well, I think the person leaked it for the same reason we have leaks continuously. They work for the United States government, but they disagree with the United States government's policies. And if they provide information that will undermine the confidence in those policies. That's essentially what has taken place here. And usually is the prevalent thought process behind all leaks.
By the way, real fast, before you answer the second part of my question, which is how irresponsible this may or may not be for publications, I understand the tone in your voice was like, well, Larry, this is obvious why someone would do this. I only ask you to answer that question because that seems to be a big part of this story that the New York Times and CNN and these other outlets, they leave out of the story. You know, it could be very easy for them to say, by the way, this was leaked by somebody who's trying to undermine the current strategic and military policy of the United States. I think that's important for people to comprehend, don't you?
Yes, it is, but that's not going to be the lead part of the article. It's just
it's not any part of the article.
their motivation is the same as the leaker. So I think we all know that.
Well, then there you've answered the second part of my question. Yeah, go ahead, Julie.
They're happy to editorialize, but only in one direction. I'm wondering, General, if you could comment on the ceasefire itself. Is it real? Is it strong? It seems like the day after they announced the ceasefire, there were some missiles going back and forth. What is the status of that ceasefire?
Well, the ceasefire, it normally takes 48 to 72 hours for ceasefires to be enforced, for the entire chain of command to kind of get the message. I think that's what was going on here, and it looks like that's settled down. But I think, frankly, the ceasefire is premature, and I think there are some problems associated with it. It doesn't have any conditions whatsoever. It's not done in terms of a strategic framework. Listen, we got to recognize Iran is steadfast in its resistance against the United States and Israel, and they will use the cover of the ceasefire to restart, rebuild their nuclear program. There is absolutely no doubt that that's what they will be about, and the Israelis have got to be, and I think a warning should be issued to them. That's what I'm saying. There's no conditions, that we're not going to tolerate any restart of your program, and if there's evidence to do that, we should tolerate the Israelis conducting reattacks to stop that from happening. That is something that has got to be done as soon as possible. The lack of a strategic framework, it should be done in the context that we want you to come to the negotiating table, not just to dismantle the rest of the program if something exists, but let's talk about your aggressive and malign behavior in the region and support for proxies. We want that to stop. We also want to stop your state sponsorship of terrorism. Let's put some really tough conditions on the table in terms of stabilizing the Middle East once and for all, so we can move on to the Abraham Accords and get other countries to normalize relationships with Israel. That's why I'm disappointed in the ceasefire, because it doesn't have conditions and it doesn't have a framework.
General Jack Keane is our guest, and while all of that is going on in the Middle East, and we appreciate your assessment of this, we've also got the summit going on in NATO, where the General Secretary made an astonishing announcement that there will now be trillions of new dollars spent on defense by the NATO nations, thanks to President Trump's leadership and insistence that they step up their percentage of their gross domestic product on national defense, which was always part of the plan for NATO. It just has never been enforced. Where do you think NATO is right now in terms of their strength, the unity of that coalition? And if you don't mind, what does that mean to the ongoing war between Ukraine and Russia?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think President Trump's arrival in NATO for his first NATO meeting since he became president, contrast that to 2017, is nothing short of remarkable. Yeah. I mean, there was doubts whether he was a valid and legitimate president. And he wasn't treated like most presidents were treated, and now he has the wind at his back coming in there, and the only thing that's on the agenda, Larry and Julie, is a 2-hour session which deals principally with Trump's agenda, and that is to discuss the percentage of contribution of defense budgets to NATO. That is what is on the agenda. And so, in a sense, this meeting is about the president's agenda. And they're not only moving from the goal of 2%, they're moving to a goal of 5%. And
it's
whose goal
amazing.
was that? That was his.
Absolutely remarkable.
I mean, it's nothing short of extraordinary, to watch this. And then also he arrives there literally with his wind at his back in terms of what has taken place with Iran. Iran has never been on its knees like this. We can all see what has happened here, and the United States contribution was certainly decisive and quite remarkable. Israelis deserve the lion's share of the credit, certainly in what they have done, to clearly strip away Iran's capabilities. But so does the President of the United States in supporting them, the Israelis, but also in his very bold decision to conduct that remarkable strike.
General, quickly, and I have to be very quick because I'm already past you, but this is obviously very good for strengthening NATO and their ability to fend off any attack. What about the Ukraine-Russia war, though? Does this have I'm hearing some analysts say, well, this Trump's dominance here and Trump's ability to strengthen NATO actually ends up being bad news for Ukraine in their effort. Do you see it that way?
I notice a lot of talk about that, but I don't see it that way, and I hope it isn't that way. I mean, the other thing that has strengthened NATO is obviously Putin's invasion of Ukraine, and that's got their attention in a big way. And they're obviously they give they about equal the support we provide, to Ukraine. It's been misrepresented that they don't. They actually do, and they have for some time. But I think the president's leverage that he achieved with Iran gives him leverage with Putin as well as a result of that. And what I would like to see him say to him, look, we're committed here, United States and Europe, to provide Ukraine the necessary military assistance that they need. And we're going to committed to do that. And tell that to Putin. He would pay attention to that, believe me, and also get on with crippling sanctions. I think we'd find him at the negotiating table as a result of it.
All right, Jack, and we're going to leave it there, General. Thank you so much for joining us on a very busy day. And happy birthday to the Army.
Yeah, great. Oh, yeah, that was wonderful. we were there. We thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
It's 8:18.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Bernie Sanders sat with Joe Rogan yesterday. A lot of noteworthy bites here. Let's start with this one. First, asking him if he'll run again, when he's 90. Let's listen, cut 17.
Are you going to run for president again?
I am 83 years of age.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure the American people will be enthusiastic on somebody's 108.
You're still very with it.
Thank you.
You are.
Well,
I mean, you're a couple years older than Biden.
Yeah.
Right? Think of that.
Yeah.
You could be off a lot worse.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
In other words,
So
compared to Biden, you're okay. I mean, you're still a wackadoodle socialist, but listen, there's good money in being a socialist, Bernie Sanders, as we've learned.
That's right.
They then talked about climate change, where Bernie Sanders tried to make it understand. And Rush Limbaugh used to talk about this at the fall of the Berlin Wall and the end of the Cold War. He noted that all the communists were becoming environmentalists. They called them watermelons, green on the outside, red on the inside. And Bernie Sanders is no different. So they use climate change, so-called, to further their communist agenda. And so Joe Rogan says, yeah, but climate change isn't actually happening. Take a listen.
You got to deal with this climate change issue. And I know that, there are some people who think climate change is a hoax. It ain't a hoax. I think the last 10 years have been the warmest on record. And we can create millions of good-paying jobs, transforming our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency, to solar, to wind, and other sustainable energies.
I think the climate change issue is very complicated. And I think, did you see the Washington Post piece that they wrote, where they did this long-term view? First of all, the reality is that the Earth's temperature has never been static, right? We could both agree on that. It's always been up and down. There's been ice ages and heat waves. And then the Washington Post looked at it. What was the time period that they looked at? That essentially they found that we're in a cooling period. That the Earth over the past X amount of years, and this was like a very inconvenient discovery, but they had to report the data, and kudos to them for doing that. Scientists have captured the Earth's climate change over the last 485 million years. Here's a surprising place we stand now. So look at the far end of that graph, and you see we're in a cooling period.
Well, I'm not sure. I didn't read that article, but
Yeah.
The scientists who are out there, I think.
I know, but there's a lot of money involved in that too, Bernie. That's part of the problem. There's a lot of money involved in this whole climate change emergency issue, and there's a lot of control, and that's a big part of this problem.
That's right. A lot of money, a lot of control, and that's what communists love, and that's who Bernie Sanders is. But that's my favorite part, where he says, well, here's the article. The Washington Post printed it, because they're crazy right-wingers. And here's the numbers, and here's the graph. And when you zoom out and actually look at it, we're in a cooling period. And Bernie Sanders' only response is, I don't know. I didn't see that. It's a really good interview. It's a long one. There's much more in it. Go check it out. It's 8:22.
coming up, we have news on the New York City mayoral race. A socialist, defund the police, terrorist sympathizing anti-Semitic, won the Democrat primary. Time to move to Florida. We'll give you an update. Keep it here. It's 8:30.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. WMAL. News now. Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
O'Connor and Company here with Larry and Julie. We're going to hand it off to Chris Plant coming up in just a bit. But in the meantime, let's take a look at yesterday's stunning, if not completely unexpected results of the Democrat primary in New York. The winner is Zoran Kwame Mamdani, born in 1991 in Uganda. His father is of Indian and Ugandan descent. He is a post-colonial studies professor, specifically professor of government, anthropology, and political science and African studies at Columbia University. By the way, Daddy Mahmoud gave Zoran the middle name Kwame to memorialize the famed Leninist Francis Kwame Nkrumah, who was a political radical and prime minister of the Gold Coast in the 50s. Mamdani then moved to Cape Town, South Africa with his family. He attended a private school there, then ended up going to the University of Cape Town. Then the family moved to New York City, where he graduated from the Bank Street School for Children, another private school in New York. Then the Bronx High School of Science, then Bowdoin College, then where he was the co-founder of the Students for Justice in Palestine. Graduated with a bachelor's degree in 2014 with a degree in Africana Studies, and then quickly joined the Democrat Socialists of America, ran for office, and has now become the Democrat nominee for mayor of New York City. It's always the same
pattern. It's always Ella Emhoff. It's always the rich offspring. They've grown up in privilege. They've grown up with no problems. They go to these elite schools, and then they're embarrassed by their own wealth, their own privilege, and then they turn their backs on the very things that gave them these incredible upbringings. It's always the same pattern.
They're also often raised by academics who only live in the world of academia and intellectualism. And, socialism really makes a lot of sense in a college classroom. Yeah. But whenever it's put in power and in action, and people end up dead, either from starvation, from government control, or at the hands of the government. But that's not stopping Zoran Mamdani now as the Democrat nominee from promising, a chicken in every pot for every New Yorker. Because here's a newsflash. It's really expensive to live in New York. Yeah. And Mr. Mamdani has decided that he can be mayor, and he'll then have the government fix how expensive everything is.
Free buses, free food, free grocery stores,
that's right,
free daycare. Everything's free.
Now, that's just the economic policies of Mr. Mamdani. When you think about the other things that he stands for, like, for instance, he's incredibly anti-Israel. Same with From the River to the Sea, Palestine will be free. He's promised to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu when he comes to New York City to speak to the United Nations, which is kind of interesting considering he has diplomatic immunity from such actions. I mean, we even let the Ayatollah come to the UN to speak to the United Nations, but that's okay. Zoran Mamdani is going to have his own foreign policy there in New York, I suppose. He wants to defund the police. He wants to put social workers up there in the high crime areas because they'll do a better job. And last night in his victory speech, he's made it clear that he won't be running against Andrew Cuomo, who will be on the ticket in the general election. We assume he's going to stay on. He won't be running against incumbent Mayor Eric Adams. He won't be running against the Republican nominee, Curtis Sliwa, who we had on the program earlier today. No, he's running against, you guessed it, just listen, cut 11.
We have won because New Yorkers have stood up for a city they can afford. A city where they can do more than just struggle. And it's where the mayor will use their power to reject Donald Trump's fascism, to stop mass ICE agents from deporting our neighbors, and to govern our city as a model for the Democratic Party.
Model.
There you go. Well, it is a model for the Democratic Party. Actually, he's an AOC Bernie Sanders Democrat, and that's where the power is in the party. Now, setting aside my obvious disdain for his politics and his theories and philosophies, let me just say this. Andrew Cuomo is a horrible human being. And he ran like it was a coronation. Like, don't you know who I am? I'm Andrew Cuomo. Yeah. And, of course, everyone in the media bought into that. It's like, well, Cuomo's going to win in a landslide. It's Cuomo. It's Cuomo. And guess what? New Yorkers are like everybody else. We don't like to be told what to do. We don't like to be handed a slate of candidates and say, well, here, this is the one you have to pick. We've already preordained it. So a lot of this had to do with people just not wanting Andrew Cuomo, a scandal-plagued disaster of a governor who's now trying to just resurrect his presidential ambitions by being mayor of New York. That's one part of this.
Yeah.
But there's one other part that I want to point out, and it cannot be underestimated or overstated, because this is what we're facing off with. Listen, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is going to run for office, too. She's going to run for president. And she shares not just political philosophy and destructive, horrific, evil ideas with this man, but they also have something in common. They're very good at communicating their ideas in a way that is digestible and appealing. And they are both attractive individuals that smile a lot. You look at every single picture of this guy, Mamdani, he's got a big, beaming smile on his face. I mean, he makes communism look really friendly and happy. And people are attracted to that. Where you've got Andrew Cuomo, this angry, dour jerk who everybody hates already. I mean, this is just human nature. People are going to go for someone like that.
I think there are some generational shifts going on. I think when we talk about the people, the voters who actually show up, I think it's a lot of Gen Z, a lot of millennials now. And actually, millennials have been showing up for a while, but I think it's a lot of Gen Z. And look, I think also we forget, I mean, that's interesting analysis, but I think mostly it's people going, yeah, I get this sense that things aren't going great in the city, so I'm going to vote for change. And then they know nothing about the person they're voting for. I really do think that, because if you drive down and you watch these man on the street videos, these people have no idea how radical he is. They just know he's not Cuomo. He's not the establishment. He's a new voice. He's new blood. And that's idiotic, but I think that's how a lot of people vote these days.
Yeah, you're right. Sadly, though, his ideas, his philosophies, and his plans for New York are quite old. They go all the way back to a very angry atheist sitting in a library in Oxford writing a manifesto put into place by a bunch of dead Russians who have blood on their hands. And then let's not forget the tens of millions murdered by Mao. It's all the same old story. That's how it always ends up. Who will win this race in November? There's 4 months to tell the people of New York exactly who this guy is and what the alternative is. We'll get into that in a moment. It's 8:44. That's a wrap, Julie. We'll see you tomorrow. Here comes Chris Plant. Chris, it's the rise of the communists here in America.
It really is. Is he more of a communist than an Islamist, or more of, he's going to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu when he comes to New York for the United Nations and start war. Do you think he wants to start the Civil War first in the United States, or the international war?
It's a bit of a coin flip, if they have any coins left in New York after his reign. Maybe an Islamo-fascist Leninist is the best description.
The guy and the Democrat Party overwhelmingly supports him.
Yes.
They should all start carrying AK-47s at this point.